High above the churning cerulean waves, where the wind carved sculptures from ancient stone, stood the cliff of whispering winds. Perched precariously on its sun-drenched face, a vibrant colony of honeybees thrived. Their golden hive, a masterpiece of hexagonal architecture, hummed with incessant industry. Each dawn brought a flurry of activity, as thousands of tiny wings shimmered, venturing out across the wildflower-strewn meadows. The bees were architects of sweetness, their very existence a testament to harmony and tireless effort, a tiny golden empire built on the precipice of the world, seemingly untouched by strife. But harmony, even in nature's grand design, is often a fleeting state. A shadow, larger and more ominous than any passing cloud, began to loom over their peaceful domain. From the jagged peaks across the chasm, a scouting party of giant hornets emerged. These formidable predators, armored in dark chitin and equipped with potent stingers, were driven by an insatiable hunger. Their keen, multifaceted eyes scanned the cliff face, quickly pinpointing the golden glow of the honeybee hive, a prize of unparalleled sustenance and a target for their relentless aggression, a bounty of life. One particularly brazen hornet, a hulking scout with scarred wings, detached from its patrol. It swooped down, a dark missile against the bright sky, intent on a swift raid. Below, a lone honeybee, laden with nectar, diligently made its way back to the hive. The hornet struck with brutal efficiency, its powerful jaws clamping down. But the bee's death cry, a high-pitched buzz of alarm, resonated through the air. It was a sound instantly recognized by the vigilant guard bees, signaling the first true tremor of an impending, devastating conflict, a clarion call to arms. Within seconds, the hive entrance, usually a bustling thoroughfare, became a defensive bastion. Stout guard bees, their bodies bristling with determination, materialized from the shadows of the honeycomb. They were smaller, yes, but their numbers were legion, and their commitment to the colony absolute. Though this initial skirmish claimed a life, it galvanized the defenders. They formed a tight, pulsating phalanx, their stingers poised, a living shield against the encroaching darkness. The serenity of the cliff face shattered, replaced by an escalating symphony of buzzing warnings and aggressive challenges, a testament to their unwavering courage. The lone hornet, having secured its grim trophy, wisely retreated. It ascended with surprising speed, its mission accomplished, a taste of bee flesh, and a clear signal of the hive's location and potential vulnerability. Back at the hornet nest, a dark, cavernous den hidden within the rock, the scout's return ignited a frenzy. The scent of bee, the promise of an abundant feast, stirred the entire colony into a fever pitch. Their queen, a monstrous matriarch, issued a silent command, and a vast army of her progeny began to mobilize, ready for a full-scale assault, a wave of destruction. Meanwhile, inside the golden stronghold, a palpable tension settled. The sentinels reported the hornets' retreat, but the experienced queen bee knew this was merely a prelude. Scouts were dispatched, not for nectar, but for intelligence, their short, frantic flights confirming the worst, a massive hornet contingent was indeed assembling. The bees began to reinforce their vulnerable entrance, sealing off non-essential openings with propolis, preparing for the onslaught. The once cheerful hum of the hive transformed into a low, anxious thrum, the collective heartbeat of a community bracing for total war, their fate hanging in the balance. Then, like a dark plague descending from the heavens, they came. Hundreds of hornets, their striped bodies menacing and their wings beating with a synchronized, dreadful rhythm, blotted out the midday sun. Their collective buzz was a deep, guttural roar that echoed off the cliff face, a sound of pure, unadulterated aggression. They were a living, breathing war machine, each individual a weapon, poised to tear apart the delicate structure of the bee colony. The sheer scale of their force was overwhelming, a terrifying spectacle of predator power, a force of nature driven by instinct and hunger. The first wave of hornets crashed against the bee defenses with shocking force. It was a chaotic explosion of chitin, fur, and venom. Hornets, with their larger size and formidable mandibles, tore through the outer ranks of the guard bees. But the bees were not easily broken. They swarmed, a golden, living tide, sacrificing themselves to sting and disorient the attackers. The air became thick with the scent of fear and pheromones, a deadly perfume of battle. Bodies, both hornet and bee, tumbled from the hive entrance onto the rocky ledges below, marking the brutal intensity of the initial impact. Individual acts of desperate bravery unfolded amidst the carnage. A tiny bee, realizing its stinger was no match for a hornet's thick armor, targeted a vulnerable joint, delivering its fatal sting even as it was torn apart. Others, in groups, attempted to mob larger hornets, overwhelming them with sheer numbers, creating a suffocating, stinging ball of bodies. Every fallen bee was a loss, a ripple of sorrow through the colony, but their sacrifice bought precious seconds, inflicting damage, and slowing the hornet advance. The hive's survival depended on these countless, heroic sacrifices, each a testament to unwavering loyalty. The hornets, though suffering losses, were relentless. Their larger, more intelligent leaders directed smaller groups to probe different sections of the hive entrance, seeking a weakness, a chink in the golden armor. They tried to peel away layers of defenders, attempting to create breaches that their larger brethren could exploit. Their powerful jaws were weapons of mass destruction, tearing through bee bodies and even the wax structure itself, threatening to expose the nursery and the precious honey stores. It was a siege, brutal and tactical, a war of attrition against a determined, but physically outmatched, foe. Deep within the labyrinthine tunnels of the hive, the queen bee felt the reverberations of the battle. Her very existence, and thus the future of the entire colony, was at stake. Worker bees frantically moved her, along with the most vital eggs and larvae, to the safest, most protected chambers, hoping to shield her from the encroaching destruction. Her pheromones, usually a calming balm, now carried an undertone of primal fear, a scent that urged her daughters to fight harder, to protect their shared lineage, their future, with every last drop of their precious, finite lives. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm the defenders, a desperate, ingenious strategy was unleashed. A large group of bees, sacrificing their individual safety, swarmed a particularly aggressive hornet that had breached the main entrance. They didn't sting immediately, instead, they formed a pulsating, living ball around the invader. Their collective body heat rapidly rose, overwhelming the hornet's ability to regulate its temperature. It was a slow, agonizing death for the hornet, but a display of astonishing, coordinated intelligence by the bees, an ancient, devastating maneuver now deployed in dire necessity. The heat ball tactic, repeated multiple times, began to take a heavy toll on the hornet ranks. Several of their most formidable warriors, caught in these fiery embraces, collapsed and died, their armored bodies twitching grotesquely. The hornets, accustomed to swift, brutal kills, were taken aback by this unexpected, self-sacrificing defense. Their initial ferocity wavered, replaced by a growing caution. Their strategy faltered as they struggled to adapt to an enemy willing to die en masse to achieve victory, altering the balance of power, even if slightly, in this brutal conflict. Despite these bee victories, the battle was far from over. Hornets continued to press their assault, their sheer numbers still daunting. The ground below the hive was littered with the fallen of both sides, a grim tapestry of the ongoing struggle. The air remained thick with the desperate cries of battle, a symphony of buzzing fury and the tearing of wings. Every inch gained or lost was paid for in lives, relentless, grinding conflict where exhaustion began to set in, but neither side seemed willing to concede, locked in a brutal embrace of survival. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of orange and purple, a new, unforeseen challenge arose. The wind, which usually merely whispered across the cliff, suddenly whipped into a furious gale. Gusts tore at the combatants, sending smaller bees tumbling and even knocking larger hornets off balance. Rain began to fall, turning the battleground slick and treacherous. Nature, indifferent to the miniature war unfolding on its grand stage, added its own cruel hand, threatening to sweep both predator and prey into the turbulent sea below, an impartial, dangerous force. The sudden storm tested the bees' resolve to its absolute limits. Their smaller bodies were buffeted mercilessly by the wind and rain, making flight almost impossible for those outside the hive. Yet, they clung to the textured rock and to each other, their grip tenacious. Inside the entrance, they hunkered down, forming tighter, more resilient formations. This new environmental factor, while challenging, also disoriented the larger hornets, whose flight patterns were more drastically disrupted. The bees, hardened by centuries of adapting to harsh conditions, demonstrated an unyielding resilience, weathering the storm both external and internal. High above the fray, the Hornet Queen's most trusted lieutenant, a massive, scarred warrior, surveyed the chaos. The losses were mounting, disproportionately high for such a prized target. The bees' ferocity, combined with their unexpected tactics and the sudden storm, had turned a planned feast into a bloody, costly stalemate. Frustration buzzed through its multifaceted mind. The energy expended, the warriors lost, the cost of conquering this particular hive was quickly outweighing the potential reward. Doubt, a rare commodity in their aggressive nature, began to creep into the hornet ranks, altering their relentless focus. A guttural command, a specific pheromone signal, rippled through the hornet ranks. It was the call to retreat. Slowly, reluctantly, the remaining hornets began to disengage. Their withdrawal was not an act of cowardice, but a strategic repositioning. They had tested the bees, suffered significant losses, and learned a bitter lesson. With heavy bodies and broken wings, they ascended back into the darkening sky, a much smaller, more ragged force than the one that had descended hours earlier. The drone of their wings diminished, leaving behind a silence thick with the aftermath of war, a grudging concession. A stunned silence settled over the cliff of whispering winds. The rain eased, and the last light of dusk painted the ravaged hive entrance in somber tones. Slowly, tentatively, the surviving bees emerged, their bodies bruised and wings torn. They surveyed the devastation, the scattered bodies of their sisters, the damaged comb, the lingering scent of battle. Grief permeated the air, but beneath it, a quiet hum of survival, of victory. They began the somber task of clearing the fallen, tending to the injured, and repairing the breaches in their golden home, a testament to enduring strength. The battle was over. The honey bees had defended their home, their queen, and their precious stores against a formidable foe. The cliff of whispering winds, once a stage for brutal conflict, slowly returned to its natural rhythm. The memory of the hornet invasion would linger, a stark reminder of the ever-present dangers in their world. But the colony, though wounded, was unbroken. They would rebuild, nurture new life, and continue their tireless work, a testament to unity, courage, and the fierce, indomitable spirit of a tiny golden empire perched resiliently on the edge of the vast, unforgiving world.